Excuse me. You look like you love me. You look like you want me to boop ba beep bop boo. Hey y'all. What's up, my Facebook peeps? So I wanted to jump on and chit chat with you guys a little bit about what today is. Let me see how that looks. This light is just not doing it for me today. Nope. Oh. Okay, we'll do that one. Yellow is fine. Okay, so 9 years ago today, my little boy got taken from me, okay? I was just getting home from my job. I had just started working as the assistant manager at McDonald's, and I was in active addiction. I was addicted to IV opioids, IV cocaine, methamphetamine, and Xanax. And my son got taken away from me. And I remember the day that he got taken away from me, I thought, well, I'll tell you, I wanted to die. I wanted to take my own life. But I also knew that if I did that, then I was never going to see my son again. So I had to do something different. I had to make a change. And so I fought for my son. And I went into treatment that same day. The reason why I say my sobriety date is July 13th and not today is because when I was in treatment, I relapsed on benzos. I was sneaking benzos into the rehab. So that's why I go by the July 13th sober date. But I got sober today, the day I gave custody over my son. I relapsed briefly while I was in treatment, and then I got sober on the 13th. So that's why I say my sobriety date is the 13th. But anyway, yeah, can you guys believe it? It's been 9 years. I've had custody of my son back ever since 2015. No, I lost custody of my son July 2nd of 2015, and I got custody back of my son that October or November. He was back home. And then they closed my case the following March, I think. It was like a 10 or 11 month situation. But I can't remember exactly, but I know it took me about 10 months to get him to where he was allowed to stay at my house and sleep in the house with us. But I fought tooth and nail to get custody of my son back. He's the reason why I'm sober today. He's the reason why I'm alive today. If it wasn't for my son, I probably never would have stopped using drugs because I did not give a fuck about myself at all. Hey, Melissa, thank you. I did not care about whether I lived or died. I did not care about anything except for drugs at that time. And so my son is the reason why I'm alive today. He saved my life. You know, a lot of people will tell you, you can't get sober for anybody but yourself. That's not true. Yeah, you can get sober for other people, and that's exactly what I did. I got sober for my son, and I used my son as motivation to stay sober. And eventually, over the years of staying sober, I started to stay sober because I wanted to stay sober, because I believed that it was the best thing for me. But at the beginning, I was just white knuckling it, honey. I was just holding on by the seam of my pants. I was just barely making it. But yeah, now it's been 9 years, and honestly, you guys, every year that goes by now, like, it's just easier and easier and easier and easier. Hey, Nate. Yeah? Don't yell, buddy. I know you're playing on PlayStation, but don't yell, okay? Every year it gets easier and easier and easier to stay sober. I have no desire to use drugs anymore. I have no desire to hang out with people that use drugs. Everything about my life has completely 100% changed. 100% changed. So I just want you guys, if you're out there and you're struggling, to know that you can change your life. You can turn your whole life around, and you don't never have to come back to using drugs if you don't want to. That's the beautiful thing about it, is that you have the power to change your whole life. It's all within you. Is it easy at the beginning? No, it's really hard. It's challenging, you know? But after you get over that challenging part, it ain't nothing but a thing. Like, now it's a working part of my life. Now, like, for me to go out and get high today, I would have to go outside of my normalcy, outside of my regular, you know, like, program. My program is I wake up in the morning, I do my gratitude, I talk about my recovery, I share with other people, I take care of my son, I take care of my animals, I do my job, I take care of my husband. Like, I have a little program, a little system going on now, you know? But yeah, I just want you guys to know that it gets easier and easier and easier the longer you stay sober. The biggest tip that I can give to people that are trying to get sober is to distance yourself from people who are trying to keep you from staying sober. If you have people in your life who are using drugs, it could be your baby's daddy, it could be your best friend, it could be your mom, dad, your uncle, your grandma, your fucking granddaddy, your sugar daddy, your sugar mama, whatever. If they're still using, you need to disconnect from them, because as long as they're still getting high, it's still in your face every day. It's still a temptation, and it's just not worth it. A lot of people reach out to me and they say, I'm trying to get sober, but you know, my boyfriend shoots meth and he doesn't want to get sober. Well, baby, if your boyfriend's shooting meth, you need to go ahead and move out. Okay? You don't need to stay around that. And to me, it's like torturing yourself. Why would you want to stay around that? Why would you want to live with somebody that is injecting drugs while you're trying to not inject drugs? You know what I mean? It's like the two just don't go together. Distance yourself from that kind of stuff and be on your own. And that's the best thing you can do. When I got sober, fortunately for me, my husband wanted to get sober too. So we were able to get sober together because we both wanted to get sober. We both wanted better for our lives, you know? But I promise you, if he hadn't wanted that and he had caused me any strife when I was fighting to get my son back, I would have kicked his ass so far to the curb and kept fighting for my son, because I'm not going to would not let anybody get in the way of me making sure that my son had his mom back in his life, you know? And so sometimes you have to choose, you know, choose between what's more important, you know? So
the girl that was at the gas station, today when I had to go get gas.
That's my husband, y'all.
And
say hi, Neal.
Hello. She actually, like, because I hadn't had to get gas there in a while. I usually go to Walmart, but she goes, "Hey, my sister is the one that had her kids taken away," and she was like, basically told me about that her sister watches your channel. She got 2 of her kids back, and she's supposed to get the other 4 back, like, within, like, a month or so. And I was like, damn, that's a lot of kids, but, yeah. I mean, you know.
But she's getting them back, though.
Yes. And I told her, I said, well, I mean, that is one of those situations that is so important for her to not be around the people that she was around. It seems like she has gotten away from that. And then, you know, of course, she was like, yeah, that's what I'm really worried about. And I said, well, then you need to make sure that if you care for her, then that you
help her to not be around those people.
And give her the right, like, cues and the things that she's supposed to do. And if she starts, like, veering left, right, whatever, then like remind her what would happen. I mean, because I can't imagine having 2 kids that you're getting back, 4 that you're going to get back.
So that's 6 kids. And think about it, like a lot of the reasons why people like that go back to their life is because they're living in poverty and their whole family is addicted to drugs. And so anybody that they move in with is on drugs. And so that's why it's so important.
Like, I really do. Like, and I don't ask names because, to be honest with you, it's not my personal business. And, you know, I would rather, I really don't even know her name.
Yeah.
But I know who she is. And so if she did see this, I would just want her to know that, like, we're talking about it and we want her to understand that is very important. I mean, especially kids. Like, think about that. Like, they are the ones that have been put in a situation that they had no control over. But the parents do. So if they do anything, they need to make sure that those kids have the right direction in which to go to, you know. And I don't know, it's tough. I can only imagine like having that many kids and then also trying to fight an addiction. We had one.
We had one kid and tried.
We had difficulties.
But when Nathaniel got taken away from us, we cut out every single person in our life who used drugs.
They had to go.
I put a sign on our front door that said, "We gone sober now. If you're coming here for drugs, I'm calling the cops on your motherfucking ass."
We changed everybody. We got different numbers.
We got different phone numbers.
I don't even remember like how the whole process went. I just know that like
I took control and we fucked everybody off.
And my parents and your parents. Yeah, like seriously, that's exactly how it went. And it's like, unfortunately, some of those people that you have to cut out are people that you care about and you love. That aren't that bad. They're just still in addiction too, and they're in the same boat you're in. But at the same time, it's like, okay, what's more important? You, your family, your kid, or your friend who has the same choice that you have? And I mean, it'd be different if that same person was like, "Oh, okay, let's get sober together.
Let's all turn our lives
that's
around."
Not the case. So
right.
You have to.
Usually what ends up happening is you go sober and then you want to jump in the lake to save your friend while they're drowning, and you go to jump in and they pull you down under with them.
True.
And that's why it's so important. Like, I'm not ever trying to like tell you guys, just turn your back on your friends that are on drugs. That's not what I'm trying to advocate for. But like, it's kind of like what you got to do. You have to turn your back and get your ass out of the fucking fire before you can go back and take water back to throw on the people that are still burning. If you're still burning and you're trying to fucking pull people out of the fire, you're going to collapse and die and burn up. You know what I mean? And so when Nathaniel got taken from us, that was like the icing on the cake. That was, we already had so many things going on in our life that were like signs that we needed to turn our lives around and change. But you know, the loudest sign is what gets the attention. And so when our son got taken from us, it was like, no question, bro. Like, there's not even, like, I didn't even have, the only thought that came to my mind was, damn, I really need to get high one last time because I'm a drug addict. But then after that, I'm out. This is it. I'm going to treatment. So I literally drove to the dope dealer's house, grabbed a pill on the way there, and then went into treatment. You know what I mean?
And that was like seriously so scary to go, okay, I can't do this anymore. But then you gotta like, even if you're still using, you gotta think about like, okay, what is going to happen to the person I brought into this world? And if you decide that you're more important than that, then that's sad.
A lot of people decide, I don't even know if they knowingly realize or decide in their mind that drugs are more important than their children. It's hard for me think about people that don't fight to get their kids back. Because it didn't even go through my mind to not fight to get my son back. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
I don't think anybody fought for them usually.
That's what I think it is. It's like nobody fought for them, so they don't know how to fight for their own children. I think it's it happened to their family, their family's family. They're caught in the system, and it's like a thing like that. But you know, a lot of people have like a misconception about me and my husband that like his parents were like rich and like saved us from our addiction. And no, nobody came and saved us. We were literally dying. Our son got taken from us, and we had to do something different. Like,
we were in their house doing that.
Doing drugs.
Yeah, and I mean that I feel like they knew some of the details just by looking at us, but they definitely did not know all of the details.
Right.
And we had to I'm not bragging in any way, shape, or form, because I feel like I should have probably been long gone, and I should have definitely quit a long time ago. And my parents helped me very much. Like, I would do that for Nate in a heartbeat until he's old and gray if I can. But you know,
me and Neal had a different kind of family, so like his parents helped him more. Your parents had no offense or anything, but his parents had an enabling issue.
Yeah, I don't think they understood.
I will tell you this: you might think that we would enable Nathaniel, but we will not. If he decided to go down the path of addiction, I'm not saving him. He will go, and he will go to jail if he gets in trouble.
Well, I wasn't saying.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I'm just
like,
saying, like, I will help him.
We'll help him to get help and change his life, but like.
I'm not saying that he's ever going to be even no drugs.
No, I don't think he will. But the way that my parents helped me and the way Neal's parents helped him was two very different ways of helping. Neal's parents didn't know how to not support him in the fact where they kind of enabled a lot of his behavior, and it kept him in addiction longer. My parents were the kind of parents who were like, you can't live here. We're not giving you money. Like, they cut me off financially. They offered support if and only if I decided to go get help.
And our addictions were in two different stages of our life. Like, yours was really pretty early, like in your teens and all that.
Yeah, I started using drugs from the time I was a young girl.
Probably, I mean, I was definitely an addict and all that stuff beforehand, but like when problems started was after I graduated college.
He had graduated college, he got a master's degree.
Yeah, like, and then
he was very successful. So I think that plays a lot into why your parents kept helping you, because they're like, surely he's going to pull out of this. He's got his master's degree. He's like, he went to college. I didn't do any of those things. I was shooting dope by the time I was like 20-something, 22 or 23. Neal was in college and graduating with a master's degree, playing on the soccer team, got a scholarship for it. Do you know what I'm saying? So I can see why your mom and dad were still trying to like save you, because you had so much to be saved.
Well, I also think they were partially in denial, going like, this isn't real. Like, he's really not that bad off. He just needs some help. And they would help me, and then I would fuck up. And
they would help you, and you would get better, and then you would... Because Neal had when I met him, he was shooting dope and had a great job. You know what I mean? He had a great job. He was shooting dope. I had a great job, and I was shooting dope. I was assistant deli manager at the fucking Kroger when I met Neal. Or produce manager at the Kroger when I met him. Like, we both had such good jobs.
Fired from, I ended up being the assistant manager of.
Yeah, he got fired. I got fired from my job. Then he got a job being the assistant manager of that store. It's just crazy. But when Nate got taken away from us, like, I don't think, like, when he got taken away, it wasn't like, oh, we don't know what we're going to do. I looked at Neal and I was like, I'm going into treatment. I'm getting help. You have to get help too if you're going to be with me, and we're going to be together, and we're going to get our son back together. There's not going to be any of this, oh, I still want to get high. Bye, Nicole. You get custody of our son back. Because we weren't married. And so the way CPS did it was they made him prove that he was actually the father by taking a DNA test and all that. You know, so when Nathaniel got taken away, I already knew if he got taken away from me, if something like that happened, that was it. I was done. Like I always told myself I will never let that happen. And then when it happened,
because we were around people that it happened to, and you would just be like, well, I can see what happened to them, but...
Yeah, it was hard for me to accept the fact that my son got taken from me, even though I know I was doing stuff I wasn't supposed to be doing, because I wasn't doing things like the typical drug addict would. My son was well taken care of. He was always...
He had cool little bassinet. Nice
he had everything a kid could want. The reason why my son got taken from me was because my best friend got pissed off at me. And we were doing meth together. And she owed me money and got pissed and called CPS on me. But and it still makes me so mad to this day. I've forgiven her. I don't talk to her like that anymore, so it doesn't matter. But what if I didn't have the wherewithal to get my son back? What if my son had gotten taken from me for fucking ever because of that fucking bitch? You know? What if my son was stuck in fucking foster care and got adopted out?
Trump or something.
You know what I'm saying? Like...
Like it.
When I think back to how easy it was for someone to just call and make an anonymous fucking call on me like that.
Yeah, that turned...
What made it so easy was I fucking I called them and I was like, because they came to my house several times. I wasn't there. I was at a job working. Like I was working. My mother and father-in-law took care of my son while I was at work, you know? So I was working. My husband was working. We were working full-time jobs. You know, this wasn't a situation where we lived in a nasty ass fucking squalor where my son was fucking in a shitty diaper and there was needles everywhere. No, nothing like that. We both worked full-time jobs. We just had really fucking big addictions. That's why we worked full-time jobs. So we could pay for our drugs and pay for our house and pay for the shit we had. And so, I always think back to what if I wasn't able to get my son back? You know what I mean? Like, because they tried to fuck with me and my husband. They tried to fuck us over and keep our son from us. And CPS can do that to anybody. That's why when you guys come on my accounts and you guys talk about, you know, your child has gotten taken away or whatever, I always tell you guys, you don't have to talk to CPS. You don't have to open the door to CPS. You don't have to talk to them. They are nobody. Do not make the mistake that I made, because you never know. You could get a shitty caseworker who is just trying to meet her quota to take away your kid. And that's basically what happened to us. They came into our home. Our home was beautiful. Everything was clean. There was nothing amiss. Nothing was wrong. The only thing that was wrong was I couldn't pass a drug test. Everything else was fine. Everything. We both had jobs, everything.
I think everything also would have been different if my parents were capable of taking him, but they like thwarted that.
They were capable of taking them.
I know. I'm
CPS told us that we could. We asked for our son to go to next of kin, which is Neal's mom and dad.
And they offered that.
And they said, hey, do you want your son to go to his grandma and grandpa? And I was like, yes, please, please. Then they said that they couldn't do that. And this is how I know, you guys, this is how I know that CPS is full of shit. Because there was no reason why my son couldn't go to his Gigi and Papa. They had just bought a brand new house. My mother-in-law had just retired from working for the State Farm Insurance for 40 years. My father-in-law was a retired Vietnam veteran, decorated veteran, okay? And they had a beautiful brand new home, 2 brand new cars, everything, a fenced in backyard, and they had all the time in the world on their hand. They were both retired. And when we said, can our son go to his grandparents? They said no. They denied them. And so that's why I always tell you guys, like, if you are in a situation where you're struggling with addiction, like, Get your kids over to your family's house right away. If you have any kind of idea that CPS or some entity like that is coming into your life, get a hold of your next of kin and get guardianship signed over to your family members right away. There was no reason. Melissa, you want to know the reason that they gave us? They said because my mother and father-in-law were too old. They were 60 years old. They lied. The reason why. Do you want to know why the reason? Because they couldn't make money off my son if they placed him with my mother and father-in-law. That's why. Simple. What other reason would there be? There was no other reason. My mother and father-in-law, like I said, upstanding citizens. Never even had a fucking traffic ticket.
I don't know about that, but...
I mean...
I'm kidding. I know my dad probably had a speeding ticket.
Speeding ticket, maybe, but, like, seriously, like, straight-laced. Like, why would you deny them? Why wouldn't you let a newborn baby? He was literally not even 1 year old.
And he'd been with them
those were the
his
only...
entire life, since he was born. Both of them were in the hospital room when he was born.
The only people my son knew was me, my husband, his Gigi, and his papa. Because my mom and dad were living in New York, so they didn't get to establish a really close relationship with my son yet.
But he had still met them because we went up there.
Yeah. So, what other reason would they have to deny them? Other than because they couldn't make money off my son if he went to his grandparents. So that's why when you guys come on here and I talk about my experience with CPS, that's why I will bash the fuck out of CPS till the day I die.
Yeah, we're
and
jaded.
They are horrible. They're horrible. You cannot trust them. If you're struggling with substance use, you need to get as far away from them as you can. Do not fucking let them in your house. Do not answer the phone. Get a lawyer. Lawyer the fuck up. Don't be stupid like I was. I thought that they were there to help me. And so when they came and they reached out to me, instead of being quiet and getting a lawyer, I was like, I need help. I want to get sober. Please help me. I'm ready to go to treatment. Because I thought that they were there to help me. You know what I mean? They're not there to help you. Fuck CPS. All the way to the bank and back. And so the whole time I was telling them all these things about my situation, about how I had struggled with addiction for so many years and that I wanted to get sober, but every time I would get sober, I would relapse. And you know what they did? They wrote all of that and built a case against me and took my son from me. So, get a lawyer. That's all. Get a lawyer ASAP right away. Right away. Because, like I said, it's human error. All it takes is for you to get a caseworker that doesn't like you. You to get a caseworker that thinks that you're not trying hard enough. You know, hey, Laura, what's up, girl? All it takes is just their own human error to happen. And that could be the difference of whether or not you get your child back or not. That is wild to me, that they have the power to do that. That's why I tell you guys, do not let them in your home. Do not talk to them. I am very fortunate that I got my son back. Like, I just don't think people understand how hard they tried to not give us our son back. They tried to keep our son from us. They tried to say, when it was time to close our case, that we didn't deserve to have our son back because we were on medication-assisted treatment and we weren't really sober. And they tried to make us get off of it.
Like, we went to anything and everything they told us to, but there was, like, times... Remember that one time when we went to take that class and it was actually at the, like, Little Rock... where was it by? It was off of... kind of by where the state fairgrounds were, like the prison, not prison, but jail.
Yeah.
And we sat there forever and like showed them where we were supposed to be here for a class, and then they ended up like making phone calls and like, oh well, they're not able to make it. And we're like, wait, what?
Yeah, dude, it was so willy-nilly.
By ourselves. There's times that we were in classes with people that Straight up, you could tell they were high.
They were high. They were still fucked up, and they still had custody of their kids.
Yeah.
And so,
that's the
like,
shit that
when
was
I'm just telling you guys, like,
mind-bending.
don't fuck with CPS. If you're struggling and they come looking for you, shut your fucking door and run the other way. But the reason why I came on here is because, like, I fought for Nathaniel, and it, like I told my husband when we were going through it at that time, if he hadn't got on board with me and fought too, his ass would have been kicked to the fucking curb, because I was going to fight for our son no matter what. But Neal got on board and he helped me. Where I fell short, he picked up the slack. You know, when I was in treatment, it was too much. I was leaving the treatment center every day almost, and I couldn't do it. So I told my husband, you have to go see our son for these visits and let me finish treatment. It's too much of a temptation for me to be leaving the treatment center every day. I'm going to stay here. You go see Nathaniel. And so for the next 3 weeks, Neal went and visited our son twice a week, every week for 3 weeks, while I stayed in treatment and finished my treatment. So that way I could finish, because I couldn't even go visit our son without hysterically crying.
Yeah, and the worst thing about it too is the place that we would have to go visit with him was literally past downtown Little Rock, on the river, right, like, I mean, 100 yards away from where we used to get dope.
Yeah.
And that shit was just like
depressing.
What the fuck, dude?
Yeah, we would have to drive right to this place to see our son where we used to get high at.
It almost seems like it was hidden back there.
It was like on purpose that it was like that or something. And every time I would try to go visit him, I would just hysterically cry. So Nathaniel wouldn't come to me because I couldn't stop crying. He only wanted to go to Neal. And so then I was hysterically crying even more, because my baby doesn't even want me to hold him because I cannot stop crying.
But that all went away. Love you, baby.
We were struggling with addiction. I'll always say that. I'll always admit that. But the way things were done to us with CPS, it should have never been done like that. Our son should have never went outside of our family. He should have never been placed in foster care. Like, the way that it was done, it should not have been done that way. It was not conducive. It was not helpful to either one of us in our recovery at all. At all. And so I just don't ever want any of you guys to go through what we went through, because I could totally understand why somebody wouldn't make it through that. I jumped through fucking hoops, y'all. When I tell you, I was doing back handspring splits, landing in the fucking toe touch double back on it, on top of it like a handstand, okay, to get my son back. And so, and I didn't have a car. All we had was my husband's vehicle, okay? I can just imagine somebody who is even in a poor, because I was poor. I can imagine somebody that's in even a worse position than me, how it would be impossible for them to get their child back. Okay? So that's why.
If they didn't have support around them. Like, we had a lot of stuff.
We had a lot of support. We had
against us, but we had quite a few things that were going for us too. And
what we had going for us was we had Neal's parents who loved and supported us. We both had jobs, and if we didn't have a job, after I lost my job at McDonald's, obviously, we were both such good workers that we were highly employable. We would get jobs, boom, and work our asses off and be promoted within the month. So we had that going for us. You know, we both really wanted to get and stay sober. And so we had that going for us as well, you know. And we both, me and Neal, we had been together when Nate got taken away. We had been together for 3 years at that point. So it wasn't like we had just gotten together and we didn't know each other, you know, like we knew each other well enough to know that Neal knew that I could do it and I knew he could do it. We just needed to do it. You know what I mean? Put the work in and do it. Yeah, I do, Amy. 100%. I always think that. If you have any kind of CPS interaction, you need to have a lawyer. So I don't know his situation personally, but I suggest it 100%. And they should assign him one, that he can talk to right away. But I just don't want other people to go through what me and Neal went through. Like, when I tell you I have PTSD, I'm afraid to take my son to the doctor because I'm afraid that the doctor will make something up to have my son taken from me. I take him, don't worry, he goes to his checkups and stuff. I'm afraid for my son to miss a day of school. Because if he misses a day of school, I'm afraid they'll report me to CPS. Forever. Forever I'm scarred. Okay? Like, when I tell you, I'm scared to death. And that, I shouldn't feel like that. You know what I mean? And I'm sober. I'm not doing anything wrong. But I have seen what they're capable of. And I have seen how oversight on their part, one decision can change and ruin your whole fucking life. One decision that they might not think is serious, but it is a deciding factor on whether or not you get custody of your child back or not. I don't think humans should have that fucking kind of power over other people. I think it's so fucking wrong. And, let me tell y'all something else. So the other day, I have to find the page. I will find the girl's page and I'll share it here on my Facebook account. I found this girl's page over on TikTok, right? And she was duetting or stitching another creator's video who is a CPS social worker. This CPS social worker was making TikToks talking about gossiping and getting people's children removed from their care. Like it wasn't even nothing. And this girl got this CPS social worker fired from her job. Hell fucking yeah. But this is what I'm talking about. These are the kind of bitches that they're hiring to do CPS social work. Bitches who get on fucking TikTok and make videos about removing custody from people's houses of their kids. Who think it's a fucking game. And so this is what I'm talking about. Like, this is what I'm telling you guys. I don't believe that any human should have the ability to judge whether or not you are a proper parent or not. And then you have these social workers who they're not even parents themselves. And so, like, don't even... I could talk about it.
There's so many different scenarios that are... It's right in some circumstances. It was wrong, I feel like, in our circumstance. But at the same time, they basically gave us the opportunity to get him back. We felt very unfairly judged because of our situation. We have had specialists come in. That was from
God,
UMS.
y'all! I had to take.
We did what was supposed to be done for your child.
They were trying so hard to prove that I was not fit, that I was some kind of mentally insane person. Y'all should have seen it. Okay, they made me take 3 psychological evaluations because I kept passing them. Because I don't have a fucking personality disorder. Remember that? They were trying to prove that I had some kind of underlying personality disorder that would keep me from being a parent.
Yeah, because we went to that place downtown, and it was almost like an old house that somebody had turned into.
To an office.
Like a basically psychologist's office. And, they tested us the way they were supposed to. And it was kind of weird because you went back. Mine was okay.
Yours was fine, but they kept making me retest because the attorney had lied them.
It's like they felt like they knew something that they didn't know, so they kept just.
And what they didn't know was the reason why I was unhinged before was because I was coming off drugs. I had been shooting meth for 20 years. And so when I first came in contact with them, yeah, I was a little frazzled and I was very emotional and I couldn't stop crying because you just took my newborn from me, my less than 1-year-old son that has never been with anybody else except for me and his grandparents away from me. How do you expect me to respond? I'm supposed to be stone-faced? You know what I mean? And so they were like trying to prove that I was not capable of being fit to parent my son. And they couldn't prove it because I'm just, when I'm sober, when I'm sober, I'm good to go. I am dependable. I am trustworthy. I am safe. I am a loving, tolerant, patient parent. It was wild to me. But anyway, I could go on and on telling you guys how horrible it was. Bottom line is, I worked so hard to get my son back. I worked so hard. And they tried to stop me from that. And that's what I think is so fucked up about it, is that CPS is supposed to be all for reunifying families and getting them back together. But a lot of the times that's not the case. A lot of the times they're against reunification. They just don't say that. And they do everything they can to try and not reunify you. And so if you've been in a position like I am, I know you can relate, and I know y'all know what I'm saying. If you've never had your children taken from you, you won't understand. And a lot of you guys will probably say, well, that's what you get for getting your kids taken away from you. Yeah. You're right. I should not have been using illegal drugs as a parent. I acknowledge that. But I also think it's important to not acknowledge the fact that there are plenty of people out there that use legal substances every day in our parents, who drink alcohol like it's going out of fucking style, and their parents, who take prescription medications and nothing's said to them because it's not illegal. You know what I mean? So remember, while you're busy judging somebody else's shit, you got your own shit going on. You know, when you are pointing a finger at somebody else, 2 more fingers are pointing back at you. It's easy to judge people when you're not in their situation, you know? But getting my son back was the biggest thing it was the best thing that ever happened to me. It was the best thing that ever happened. It was the worst situation that ever happened, losing custody of him. And, I take full responsibility for the things that I did. I know that I should not have been using substances. I realize that. I've been knowing that, you know, knowing that you're not supposed to be using substances and struggling with substance use disorder is like, you know, it's like, I know I'm not supposed to be doing it, but how do I stop? You know, and especially whenever you're like a new mom and you're trying to have energy and you're trying to keep up with doing everything you're supposed to be doing. And then I had postpartum depression. There's just like a bunch of different layers to it, you know. If I could have stayed sober after having my son, I would have stayed sober. And I did try really, really hard to do that, but I failed miserably. I do believe that, you know, I went through all those experiences that I went through so that way I could be able to help other people that are going through the same thing. And that way I could be more understanding to people that have gone through the same thing. You know, I really work hard on not judging other people who have going through hardships, especially people who have lost custody of their sons and daughters, because I know how scary and how hard it is. You know what I mean? It is such a horrible feeling to lose your child. It's just like, I can't even explain to you how horrible it is.
Yeah, you go to bed thinking about it.
You go to
wake
bed
up thinking about it. All day long, you're thinking about it. So.
Nate slept with us. We were co-sleepers. He slept with us every night in his had a little bassinet set up right beside the bed. So he would be right there. And him not being there, me not being able to roll over and touch him and hear him breathing and make sure he was breathing and all that stuff. It was torture. It was torture, you know? And, a lot of people ask, well, what could have been done differently? What would have helped you? What would have helped me is not taking my child from me, taking me and my son and putting us in treatment together and helping me learn how to be a mother sober. That's what would have helped me. That's what would have helped me. You know? a 3-month program where me, my son, and my husband all move into a little cabin together, or a facility together, and we go through therapy and we go through treatment together as a family, and we learn how to heal and grow as a family together. That's what would have been beneficial, you know? But I thank God every day that I had the strength to get up after my son got taken away from me and choose to change my life. Because at the end of the day, that's what I did. I chose to turn my life around and to go the opposite way that I have been going. All my life, I had always run from my problems. Oh my gosh, I got to get high. I can't feel the way I feel. And this situation happened, and I turned around and I faced it head on, and I got custody of my son back, and the rest is history. This is a really emotional month for me. The month of July is such an emotional month for me because I think about it. Like, I woke up this morning and I thought, this is the day I lost custody of my son. Even 9 years later, I think of the people at my door coming in, drug testing me, drug testing my husband, telling me that if I don't bring my son to them at this time, then the police will be at my front door. I think about my poor father-in-law having to drive me down there not knowing what the fuck is going on. I think of my poor husband at his job not being able to say bye to our son because he was working to make sure that he supported us, and I was having to take my son down and drop him off at in some stranger's arms that I didn't even know. They could have been a fucking human trafficker for all I fucking knew. You know what I mean? And so, it's very emotional for me, but I also am so proud of myself because I fought and I got my son. And the rest, I will never go through that again. I will never, ever have somebody in my life like that can take my son from me. I will never hang out with another human being who would even think to call CPS on me, who would even think that that's an acceptable route to go. I will never hang out with somebody else that's using drugs ever again. I will not surround myself with people like that. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, lesson learned, you know? So anyway, I love you guys. I get super emotional about it. Like I said, even though it's been 9 years, it's still such an awful experience. And I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I would never wish it upon anybody. It's not any way you want to go. So I hope that hearing my story inspires you if you're going through the same thing. I hope you know that you can fight back too. And that's my suggestion to anybody going through the same experience, is to fight like hell and get ready, because it ain't going to be easy. Okay. But fight and fight smart. Get a lawyer and fight, and get your ass into recovery. Whatever that looks like. It doesn't have to be abstinence only AA recovery. If you need to get on medication assisted treatment, go through the proper channels and get on medication assisted treatment. You know what I mean? But do whatever you got to do. All right? Because your kids are dependent on you. Your kids are depending on you. And they're, at the end of the day, they're the victims. You know what I mean? If I didn't get my act together, my baby would be a ward of the state. You know? And that's just like, I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine not getting my life together and forfeiting my child.
Yeah, and I feel like also, I mean, to say something about the judge, remember, I mean, this was almost like a precedent for some of the people that were there, because that judge had never heard of Suboxone. She had, I mean, it had been around for a while, but she had never had anybody come through the court, and we brought a doctor, a nurse in to, like, basically...
We had to educate the courts on Suboxone, because we were like the first...
Dad Lightem, like, was basically saying, like, oh, well, who cares? You're trading one for the other. And that was really... maybe the terminology is correct. Yeah, I stopped shooting this, that, and the other illegally, and I went to a doctor... But I'm definitely not trading my lifestyle for the same lifestyle.
Right.
At all.
And that's what a lot of people like to say about Suboxone, is that we're just trading addictions. And it's absolutely the complete opposite. Because when I was in active addiction, I couldn't hold a job. I couldn't take care of my family. I was constantly shooting up and hurting myself and getting infections. And I was constantly hanging out with people that were drinking, using drugs, having crazy people, committing felonies. That's not, taking medication assisted treatment is nothing comparable to active addiction. Not even close. Now, if you choose to use your medication assisted treatment and abuse it and sell it and trade it for other drugs and shoot it up, that's you choosing to continue on in your addiction. But that's not what we did at all. We actually used the medication to help us. And because I think we were like the first family that was actually doing this, because it was 2014 and they didn't even know what Suboxone was when we went to court.
That's what I'm saying. It was like a precedent for the...
But I'm glad that we went ahead and that we did that, because hopefully there was families that came after us that were able to benefit from us being on. We stood strong. We didn't let them bully us into getting off the medication. We brought my doctor in, nurses, counselors, everybody to educate the courts and the ad litem, because there's no way, because I had never been sober that long in my life. It had been a year. And you're going to tell me that this medication that saved my life, that I had never been able to put together more than 6 months of sobriety, and now you're going to tell me I'm doing it the wrong way? No, man, I was not going down like that. I was fighting. And so, yeah, we fought, and we were able to teach the judge and teach them about MAT. And so
we were actually going to AA meetings because they knew what AA was.
Yeah.
And we were having to have them
sign the sheet,
those sheets and all that. So, I mean, it was our actions that I think proved it, but at the same time, there was a lot of like, okay, they're not even close to how they used to act, and they're meeting all the requirements that we're supposed to meet. We were doing this. We were doing everything what they asked and how they asked it, and I feel like that kind of turned the tables on it. Now, if we weren't
doing everything they asked us to do, I think we would have had a really different situation. But we were doing everything right, you guys. Like, I really need people to understand that. Like, we weren't fucking around to find out. We were doing it. We were staying sober. We were not drinking alcohol. We were not smoking weed. We were going to meetings. We were in therapy. We were going to parenting classes. We were making every visitation. We were taking our son out on outings when we were allowed to go places. Like, we were going the extra fucking mile every second chance we got. I memorized all 12 steps and recited them in the damn courtroom. Like, I was going there, y'all. I taught them what substance abuse disorder actually was and how the addiction works in the brain. Like, I was schooling them motherfuckers like I was a damn counselor or some shit. So when I tell you, I took it to the extreme, because there was no way I was going to let them keep my son from me. There's no fucking way. So that's also important to understand, that we were doing what we were supposed to be doing. We weren't fucking around. My husband was gainfully employed, working his ass off, also getting his sheets shined, also going to therapy, making sure that he took his urinalysis, submitting to them whenever they asked for them. Like, we jumped through every hoop that they asked us to jump through. But anyway, my phone's on 5%, so I gotta go. I love you guys. 9 years ago today, I lost custody of my son and fought my ass off to get him back. And if you're going through the same thing, you can do it too. All right? Bye.